Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from Kingston, Jamaica, the U.S. Men's National Team training camp ahead of the World Cup qualifier against Jamaica on Tuesday, November 16th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Paramount Plus and Universo. Today we'll be joined by defender Walker Zimmerman and head coach Gregg Berhalter. We do have several media here with us in Kingston. However, if you would like to raise your hand and ask a question virtually, you may do so. We're going to begin with questions, and we'll start with Brian Strauss from Sports Illustrated.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, Walker. You mentioned this last time, but obviously you were a late call-up to camp last month. You go right in, you start 2 games, you play 90. You're in a situation again tomorrow where you're going to have probably a new partner beside you. Zach didn't play for the first 5 games, comes in, other guys step in. What is it about the structure of this team, tactically, the team atmosphere, that allows guys who didn't expect to play or haven't played to kind of step in and look comfortable?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's an ideal 11 that's coalesced and like a lot of guys are able to come in tonight.
Well, I think, for the majority of the group, we've had a lot of experience under Greg and this coaching staff, and we do a lot of work kind of behind the scenes of going through tactics, going through formations, watching position-specific video, getting on the same page with other teammates that maybe you haven't played with as much in a game. But, there's a lot of trainings, there's a lot of sessions where we do get to mix and match, we play next to each other, we learn different tendencies, and I think that's kind of helped us prepare. And then ultimately, the mindset of everyone saying, hey, if this is my chance, I'm getting called on, I'll be ready to go, has been really good from the group, whether you're starting, coming in as a sub. Everyone's had, a big impact on the games.
Kevin Baxter from the LA Times.
Hey, Walker, thanks for your time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your first game was with Bruce, and then you really got part of the program under Dave and into Gregg Berhalter. That's a unique situation with the national team where everyone is kind of young and coming up at the same time, after the 2017 thing. What's that been like? Do you think that's been helpful that everyone's coming together at the same time rather than have some old guys and some new guys and people moving in and out?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of younger players, younger faces, but, we have a lot of really talented young players who are playing in a lot of the top leagues around the world and are succeeding and being successful at those clubs. So I think overall the talent, the pool that we have to draw from is really, really high, really, really talented. And so it's really fortunate for us to be able to have that kind of depth, have all that talent and experience. Even though we may be young, there's a lot of experience in the group. And then certainly it's kind of funny even to say older guys, because you look at the team and you're looking at Zach, DeAndre, and myself as the older guys, and we aren't even 30. So, it's tossed around like we're old, but, we're still feeling great in the prime of our careers. And now it's just about getting the collective together. And like I said, the talent is certainly deep at this point in time. And so we got to capitalize on that and make sure we continue to put in good performances.
Grant Wall.
Hey, Walker. Can you go into some detail on the difference between playing on the right side of the central defense and the left side? Because not long ago I was talking to Chris Richards, and he said he feels much more comfortable on the left side, but then his club team has been playing him on the right side of the back three, and he was making a big adjustment. So, and where does that fit with what you do?
Right. For me, I've played the majority of my career on the right side. I've had a few spot performances on the left, and I think it's just different pictures. You get so used to seeing the same patterns, the same movements over and over and over again, and not to mention the chemistry with players on that side. So you start to develop a real connection with those players. So there is a little bit of a difference. You're like, okay, well, you're just a center back, so why is it different? But when you train and play over and over and over again, it does become more natural. And so not that you're going to feel completely out of place because you are in a similar area of the field. There's definitely a repetition aspect, as in anything else, that's going to make a little bit of a difference. So same position overall, but ultimately I think just the pictures that you see over and over again, you're probably a little more comfortable on one side based on minutes played.
Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
How is it different playing in front of Zach and playing against Matt, in front of Matt?
Honestly, we're so lucky. We have 2 amazing goalkeepers who, both of my experiences with them have been amazing, positive. Both are very competitive, very communication oriented. They're always tuned in, always trying to whether it's subtle comments in between plays or instruction as the game's going on. Both are great at organizing the team, and so I have the utmost confidence with either of them, to be honest.
Any difference of passing out, kicking out, their distribution?
Well, I think Zach has certainly shown that he is very good with his feet, but that's not to say Matt isn't.
Right.
Matt has grown in a lot of ways over the past 2 years, and his confidence is got to be at an all-time high. You know, I was joking around with him even. He had the summer of his life, all of the career goals, Supporters Shield, all this, and he gets the #1 pick in our fantasy league. So, I mean, this guy can't do anything wrong right now. So, yeah, both amazing keepers and both certainly worthy of being called up in every camp.
Thank you.
Stephen Goff from the Washington Post.
Walker, along the lines of Zach, what he did the other day in the first half, Mexico had some high-quality chances. How did you see him in those situations, and how did that perhaps embolden you guys after halftime?
I think you can see that he's still has a lot of confidence, and that's coming off of obviously training week in or day in, day out over at Man City. He's certainly confident, and while he's not getting as many games, he comes in, he's in good form, and we ask keepers all the time, can you make that one, maybe two big saves that you need to make? And so certainly they had the great chance in the first half where they could have gone up, and if he doesn't make that save, I think the game is a lot different. So huge save from him there, and it certainly kind of gave us momentum to keep building on what we were doing there at the end of the first half and on to the second half.
Megan Swanek from The Guardian.
Thank you. Hi, Walker. So the match against Mexico got scrappier the further it went on. I'm wondering what that was like for you on the field. Did you find yourself in any altercations or near altercations? And when Brendan Aronson got taken out with a bit of an eye gouge, did you see that, and what was going through your head?
Yeah, I think it's something that we expect anytime that we play a rival, especially Mexico. Those games are a little bit different, but in terms of a Mexico-USA game, I thought it was actually pretty tame. Certainly the moment with Brendan over there was kind of funny seeing the shock on his face after he kind of got mauled about 2 or 3 times in a row. I was wondering what was going on. But that's the nature of these games, is they're competitive. We're all fighting for a World Cup qualification, and there's going to be intensity, going to be moments of scrappiness. So honestly, it wasn't too crazy, too out of the ordinary, but certainly enough to make sure that we were still kind of on edge and ready to step in if we needed to.
Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Hey, Walker. I wonder if just for yourself, trying to break into this team, into this lineup, one thing that Gregg likes is center backs being able to pass the ball, to break lines with passes, and that was one question mark that people had about you. Could you do that consistently? And it seems like in these last few performances you've had, you've made a point of making those passes consistently and trying to show that that's a part of your game. How much was that something that you kind of consciously worked on, both at the club level and whenever you were in camp here? And you know, how was your mindset in trying to prove that you could be a starter for this team?
Yeah, well, I think it's funny too, the narratives that always get tossed around, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything differently out of my comfort zone. It's certainly probably since my time beginning at LAFC, where it was a possession-based team. Obviously, work on that. When Gregg took over for the national team, that was a big emphasis, and so that's when it started, of really maybe focusing on making line-breaking passes, challenging myself in that area of my game. So I don't think it's anything where I'm coming into camp thinking, oh, I need to make some line-breaking passes to, earn a spot on the team. It's just playing my game and trying to be consistent, trying to be play within my strengths, and I'm not really thinking too much about the number of passes between the lines to try and solidify a spot.
Daniel Nora from Univision.
Hi, Walker. Thank you for your time. Thinking of the injury against Canada and how painful it was during the World Cup, did you imagine being here at that point, considering that the World Cup was like your big opportunity to show what you could bring to the team during the qualifiers?
100%. As soon as I went down, I knew right away, hamstring, probably grade 1, could be grade 2 at the worst. And immediately in my head, I was like, okay, like probably 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Got the news back from the MRI, and I started my rehab as soon as I got back from the MRI table, even with the national team still in Dallas, getting treatment before flying home the next day. And really, we created a super aggressive plan because in my mind, it was always getting back for the first window and making sure that I could prove myself within a couple of games for Nashville to put myself into consideration. And so was able to get healthy for the All-Star game, for 2 Nashville games, show that I was 90 minutes fit. And those are the kind of things that behind the scenes you just got a lot of people to thank for all the work that they do. So the whole training staff in Nashville, we did a great job, created a great plan, and ultimately put myself in a position to be considered for that roster and got called in.
Sam Stejskal from The Athletic.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Walker. Hope you're doing well. Brian touched on this in the first question, but you didn't get called for the October camp initially. You did play in September. What was that like when you learned that you weren't going to be in the squad, and then switching, where Tim pulls out, John pulls out a couple days later, and not only are you in the squad, but you're in a prominent position. And then what do you expect from Jamaica tomorrow? You played once before, but they have Antonio probably going to start this time.
I was certainly extremely disappointed not to be called in October. I think just coming on the back of not playing in September, it was kind of like, well, I didn't really get a chance. Like, let me prove to you that I can, be a key player for this team. And so I was frustrated for sure. We had a very honest conversation on the phone. And then ultimately 24 hours after that conversation where I left, like any other player, pretty pissed, pretty disappointed, but said, okay, I'm just going to continue to work. He calls back 24 hours later. He's like, hey, how quickly things change. I'm going to bring you to camp. So I was like, all right, sounds good. I'll be ready. And then certainly just came in with, I think, the same mindset that a lot of our players have here, which is what makes this team special is whenever you get your chance, you got to be ready. And so I certainly was very excited to get that opportunity that, he could have the confidence to switch like that and play me in those games. And then in terms of the second question regarding Jamaica, we have faced them once at home, and now we got them on the road. And Antonio is a big part of what they do in the attack, physical presence. They certainly have a couple attacking pieces that are able to create. And so for us, it's about not letting the last game affect what we're doing this game. And it's another chance for 3 points. It's a big opportunity for us to continue to climb up in the standings and put ourselves closer to the ultimate goal, which is qualification.
Thank you, Walker. We will be right back with Gregg Berhalter.
Thank you.
So, we didn't have to take it.
The head coach of the U.S. men's national team, Gregg Berhalter. We will begin with questions, and we'll start with Stephen Goff from the Washington Post.
Greg, you've had two goalkeepers during the qualifying process. Matt played very well. Zach's done well, particularly the other night. Going back and going through this whole competition, how do you weigh the two when you made that decision to switch over, given Zach's level of minutes? What went into all of it, and how do you assess it going forward now?
Yeah, so it was a difficult decision. It wasn't something that was easy based on how we thought Matt was playing. He played really well in the Gold Cup, only let up 1 goal in qualifying, let up 2 goals in his 5 games. And it was more, we were looking at the games and how they were unfolding, and we were saying there's a number of possessions that we can be keeping in these games that we're not. And we think Zach is stronger with his feet. We made that decision based on that. again, they're two very high-level goalkeepers. There's not much, separating them, but in this particular area where we think it was an area of need, we thought Zach was ahead, and so we made that decision.
Thanks.
Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Greg. Obviously, you guys have seen Jamaica once, but it'll be different playing them here in Jamaica, and the roster will be different. Specifically, obviously, Antonio is expected to play, probably start at top.
Yep.
How do you prepare? How much do you look at the last game versus kind of look at the way they play at home, or look at the group differently? And how do you prepare for a striker like Antonio?
This is amazing, by the way. Right? There's this one. This is great. See all the stuff they have on it. Jamaica, no problem. That's nice. Thank you. Yeah, whoever gave that, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we expect Antonio to be in, and Leon Bailey, and they didn't play against us last time. They didn't play against us in the Gold Cup either. And it's just preparing for them. Just like Mexico. Mexico had really high-level attacking quality. So does Jamaica, and we have to be prepared for that. The rest of the team we're projecting to be pretty similar to what we've been facing. And then it's also a matter of what we can do and how we can pull them apart, how we can get behind them. That was a focus of last game. And we have to see how we're able to do that. We'll go to the field today, test out the field conditions, but we want to be aggressive in this game. We want to pull them out of position and be able to take advantage of some of the spaces that open up.
Daniel Nora from Univision.
Greg, thank you for your time. I want to ask you, do you feel like something have changed in your team since the debut in the first game against El Salvador, especially that night against Canada in Nashville till today, and what have changed? And the second one is, how much will the field condition will impact in your decision of the starting room?
Yeah, so I don't know the impact of the field. We haven't been there yet. So we'll go there today and we'll be able to assess it. But absolutely something's changed with the team. It's normal. I mean, it's something where I talked all the time about how inexperienced we are, how young we are, and we need to gain that experience. And what I've seen is just the understanding increasing of what this is about, what these games entail, the level of competition. And I think we dealt with it in a decent way. I think we're going like that, and we're understanding what these games are like. And tomorrow's going to be an important game for us. Important game to show that we have learned all these lessons, and we do know what this qualifying is about.
Ron Blum, Associated Press.
A lot of the games you've been happy with the performance, some games not.
Panama we weren't.
What?
Panama we weren't, right? Yeah.
No, but in terms
Yeah.
of, what have you learned throughout your career of getting a team to be up for consecutive games, a row and row and a row, and not just peaking for certain games and then having letdowns?
It's a good question. I think in the coaching world, you talk about trap games, you talk about, putting that last game behind you. The next game's the most important game, right? There's a lot of talk surrounding, that next game. And for us, something I said to the team before the Mexico game was, we want to beat Mexico. It's important, but we have bigger things to focus on, right? I mean, that's a game that's going to get us to our destination, just like Jamaica's a game that's going to get us to the destination. And you have to put just as much energy into both of these games. And for us, our big picture is qualifying for this World Cup. And all Mexico does is put us closer, but the Jamaica game can put us even closer to qualifying. So for us, it's a massive game. And we're, when I had the team meeting yesterday, I said that as soon as we walk out of this meeting room, Mexico's done. It's in the rearview mirror. Now the focus is on Jamaica.
But is there anything, it would seem a natural tendency for the players to get really sky high for the Mexico game, and how do you get them
But
to
I think
do
it's
that
I think it's behavior. I mean, I think it's behavior. It's how we're acting around now. Everyone, there's a positive feeling, but it's not like we're looking backwards. Everyone's getting focused now on the Jamaica game, and we know it's a different circumstances, but our jobs is to bring similar type of intensity into this game.
Grant Wall.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Grant.
do you have the number one goalkeeper right now? And how are you approaching the thought process to replace McKenny and Miles Robinson?
So we have players, obviously Miles and Weston are important players for our team. But, when we made this roster, the message to the team is that everyone's here to contribute. And, it's next man up mentality. Either Mark McKenzie or Chris Richards will play at center back. Both of them have qualifying experience. And either Kellen, Gianluca, or Sebastian will play in midfield. So we have options there with guys that have World Cup experience. So regarding, the number one, number two, I think when you look at the choice of Zach to play in the Mexico game, you could infer that he's ahead of Matt. And that would be normal to infer. But what I'd say is that, it's also up to Zach keeping his form. We're not hesitant to change goalkeepers. That's, it's not something we're adverse to. And we know that the competition is really tight, and they're pushing each other, and I think that's a good thing. And he adds Sean Johnson into the mix, and other goalies that have been around, Ethan Horvath, how he performed in Nations League. We want competition for spots.
Should we look for Zach to start tomorrow?
Zach will start tomorrow, yes.
A total of 34 players have earned caps through 7 games in this qualifying cycle, 26 making the World Cup qualifying debut. Kevin Baxter, LA Times.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for your time, Greg. Speaking of that, it's a great segue into my question.
Yeah.
Most national teams, it seems to me, there's a World Cup, they take some veterans from that World Cup, they bring new players in, and it continues to rebuild like that. Looking back now 5 years from 2017, you guys had the ability to tear this down and start again. Dave brought a lot of the guys out of the core of your team, McKinney, the 2 Robinsons, Josh Sargent, in during that period. With the value of hindsight, was maybe 2017 an important moment in this team because you get to start over again and you can look at this incredible young team you have?
I don't know that. I mean, if you think about the process, since 2017, and I can speak in more detail about, the end of 2018 and 2019 is, we did have veterans around, and we knew that, we appreciated veterans, we value what they do, we value the experience that they can give to the group. And it was a matter of time before we can phase in some of these other players. You think about Gio Reyna at that time. Think of, Serginho at that. These guys were 17 years old. So for us, it was just a matter of time, until we could start bringing these younger players along. But I think the program, in terms of this group and the longevity of this group, I think is in a good spot. But our job now is to keep performing.
Thank you. Brian Strauss, Sports Illustrated.
Thanks, Michael. Greg, what you said before about inferring Zach as the number one, I think there's a tendency, maybe from fans, maybe from us, to kind of imagine an ideal 11 for a team.
Yeah.
You see that with teams that do well in World Cups, they have a core. I don't feel like you guys have one. Do you feel like there's an ideal 11 for this team? Do you wish there was? Have you been pursuing one but can't just lock it down because Serginho gets hurt, and Gio gets hurt, and Christian, or is that not what you want? Do you want there not to be an ideal 11 and for every guy to feel like everyone's at sort of the same tier of the player pool?
Well, I think it's theory versus reality. That's what it comes down to. In theory, if we say, okay, this is our best 11, how often are these players available? And I remember that was something that Bruce told me when I was taking the job. We were talking about it, and he's like, Greg, you're not going to have these players available all the time. Something comes up. Something always comes up. And I think the better that we can accept that and then build the team based on that and have the collective buy-in that guys know that they can contribute and they should contribute and that their job isn't to be a passenger. Their job is to help this group be successful. It's not about, captain or not captain or number one goalie or number two goalie. It's not about that. It's about the team being successful. And that's what we're focused on. And that's what every guy is focused on. There's not a big ego in this team. There's not, guys that, command a ton of attention. The guys just do their jobs.
It was funny when Tim the other night called Christian the star of the team. And Christian's started only 2 of 7 qualifiers. So you guys are playing essentially without your star and still in first place.
Sam Stejsko from The Athletic.
Speaking of Christian, how is he recovering after the match? Is do you anticipate that he'll be available to start tomorrow if you decide to go that route? Is he fit enough to do that?
Yeah, I think it's, again, it comes down to a judgment call. It comes down to how we feel he can best affect the opponent. We could have started him against Mexico. We didn't want to start him against Mexico because we knew that he couldn't go the full 90. So it's going to be a similar type of question that we have to ask for this game. If we do start him, how much time can he play? And then, what does that look like for the game and getting the result of the game? So for us, it's still up in the air. What I'd say is that he's come along really well after the game. He trained yesterday. He'll be full in training today. So we'll see.
Megan Swanek from The Guardian.
Hey Greg, kind of building on a
Hey, Megan.
with my question. Given that it's a shorter window and there's more time between games, how much rotation can we expect in the starting lineup? And I'm wondering if we'll get a chance to see Joe Scally feature at any point and how he's been looking in camp.
So Joe's done okay. For a young player to come into camp and the guys, know what this is about, it's great for Joe to be able to experience what World Cup qualifying is. So really happy with the fact that he's in camp, and he's been doing really well with his club and doing fine with us as well. In terms of potential game time, we'll have to see how the game unfolds tomorrow, to see if he plays or not. He won't start the game though. In terms of
How much rotation?
in terms of the rotation, we know we're going to have to change 2 players, and then we'll see. Today it will be a really good day for us on the training field because we'll see who's ready to play, who brings the right mindset and intensity to training, and then we'll pick the lineup. We haven't chosen a lineup yet.
Okay.
We'll take a couple questions from those joining us from the United States. We'll start with Charlie Bone from MLSsoccer.com.
Hey Greg, my question for you is, I think you may have heard what Walker was saying before you came in. He went from being off the roster a month or two ago to playing a big role, and so I wanted to ask about that process, which kind of follows on from what you said a little bit earlier of making everybody involved, and then also him in particular, how has he developed the skill set that you want maybe since you've been working with him?
Walker, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is one of these difficult things when we're plotting a roster for the window. We're very specific on what type of profiles we're looking for based on the opponent and based on what we're looking to achieve against each opponent. And it turned out in that one window, Walker wasn't part of it, and we had other guys that we thought were ahead of him at the time, and we also were planning substitutes and what the potential substitutions could bring for us. We were looking at our opponent. One was Honduras, really good transition speed, so we were a little bit concerned about that. But the conversation with Walker was really upfront and really open. And I said, this is where we see you. This is how you've helped us in the past. We still see you, bringing value to what we do from a leadership standpoint. We chose this direction in this window, but that doesn't mean it's permanent. And, Walker was one of those guys that got his opportunity and really thrived and really played a great game against Jamaica in that first game, and then played a very solid game against Mexico as well. So really happy for Walker. He's a great guy off the field. He's a good veteran leader in this group, and we really need him. In terms of his performance, again, I thought it was strong against Mexico. I thought it was really strong against Jamaica. And, he gives us a good aerial presence and, does well in build-up and was able to defend transition moments really well also.
Next will be Ivis Galarcep from SBI Soccer.
Greg, this is going to be your 4th time playing Jamaica in the past 8 months, which, isn't normal for national team matchups. And the past 3 have all been wins. How much emphasis are you putting to the guys about, maybe not taking them for granted just because of those wins? Because it's kind of natural for a team once they've won that many times against an opponent in a short time frame to feel maybe like it's a little easy. And a separate one on players who come in not having had many minutes in their club level. Eunice and Mackenzie is 2 examples. How do you kind of manage that and strike that balance of how you separate them? Do you lean on diagnostic testing to see where they are physically? How do you kind of manage that, those kind of players?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ives. You know, we're fortunate to get a lot of the data from the clubs, so we know what they're doing, you know, 4 weeks before they come into camp. We have every single training session, every single game. And in Eunice's case, you know, he wasn't getting game time, but his training is at a really high level in terms of how they push the guys at Valencia. So we were confident that, you know, he's a guy that can step on the field and play 75+ minutes. You know, we're pretty sure in that, and you know, and he did really well in the game. Now it's about how does he turn it around and get ready, you know, for the next game if he's chosen in the starting 11, and that's going to be the recovery side of it is going to be really important. So that was that.
Next will be Emily Olson from USA Today.
Hey Greg, I wanted to expand upon Charlie's question a little bit beyond Walker. There's a lot of talk about how deep this pool of U.S. men's national team players is. Can you describe a little bit the work that you and your team have done to communicate to those players that aren't necessarily coming in to make sure that they know, hey, we might not need you now, but this is a long stretch of games?
Yeah, it's a challenge because, you know, I've been there, and it's never nice to get a phone call and saying, you know, you're not part of a camp, and you think, okay, I'm out, I'm done. And what I try to do is communicate to the guys that that's not the case. Things can change very quickly, and, you know, we consider you part of the program, and for this particular window, we chose for another person. And really all the players can do is focus on the form at their club, if they're playing, and their work rate, and just keep working hard and having a good mindset and attitude. And then, you know, it's up to us to make the decisions. Hopefully we're making the right decision for each window. But for the players, I think the important thing is communicating, and then you gain some understanding of why we made the decision.
Last question for Greg comes from Mike Watala from Soccer America.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Roy. Back to Walker for a second. We talked a lot about the experience players are getting by playing abroad, playing in strong teams in Europe. What advantages might there be to have a player on the field who plays in MLS, such as, you know, you might know more players from playing with them, against them, or, you know, anything else you think might be an advantage to be an MLS player qualifying?
Yeah, I can see that. You know, the couple advantages are, you know, generally guys that are with the national team and playing in MLS are playing every week, so they're getting consistent game time. The other thing is there's a ton of players in the CONCACAF qualifying that are in MLS, so they're familiar with these opponents. And, you know, a lot of the stadiums they're familiar with, they played in before. So, you know, there's a number of advantages to that. And for us, you know, we're more looking at, you know, how can the individual add to the collective to help us be successful, and not what team they're playing for.
USA Jamaica tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Paramount Plus and Universo. Thank you, Greg. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.